We shall now sign
The Filipino government and the communist insurgents yesterday signed an historical ceasefire accord ending 17 years of bloodshed. The implications of the developments over the week, tonight on Focus. It has been a tense weekend in the Philippines. Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile was dismissed after a coup attempt to oust President Corazon Aquino faltered. Professional military man General Rafael Elito replaced him, and the signing of the ceasefire papers followed. After a threat of civil unrest, Aquino finally got some breathing space.
This will give the government a chance to start all over again.
Pating, sabi mo, sa harap, pating. Tulak mo yan.
A major player in the game of political wrangling over the months was Juan Ponce Enrile. In the February mutiny which drove former President Ferdinand Marcos out of power, Enrile was a decisive figure. With the present Chief of Staff, General Fidel Ramos, he stood on the side of the people power and forced Marcos into exile to Hawaii. An ardent anti-communist, Enrile had been a most vocal critic within the government, lashing out at Aquino's soft stance towards the communists. The Aquino-Enrile honeymoon was short-lived. He was alleged to be the driving force behind coup attempts to oust her. Ironically, the military's impatience over Aquino's soft stance towards the communists led to Enrile's dismissal, but it also helped speed up the ceasefire negotiations. After several months of negotiations, at times marred by the assassinations of advisors close to both Aquino and Enrile, the Philippines finally secured at least a 60-day peace.
On safety and immunity guarantees.
The truce to begin on December the 10th will historically end 17 years of insurgency. The announcement came 4 days before a deadline set by Aquino. The ultimatum to the rebels: accept a ceasefire or Aquino would break off talks underway for 3 months. The agreement included the guarantee of immunity from arrest for rebel negotiators. This ceasefire, is it enough? Rene Bass has been a journalist for the past 20 years in Asia and worked for such magazines as the Sunday Times, Asia Magazine, and The Asian. He is now a correspondent for Business Day in Hong Kong. He's been a keen observer of Filipino events, so he knows what this ceasefire means.
Permanent ceasefire that the government wants is for them to lay down their arms. So what kind of ceasefire is this? Are the communists going to lay down their arms or not? Or is just the agreement not to shoot each other for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days? If it's like that, then it's practically nothing has really happened, except that some pieces of paper were signed.
Ediso Kaharian was a community organizer in the Philippines for the Catholic Church for 14 years before coming to Hong Kong 4 months ago. Most of his work was in Mindanao, where he worked in the countryside. He tried to raise the people's consciousness, making them aware they can control their own destiny under the Marcos regime.
If the communists did not agree to a ceasefire, I think they will be losing more and more support from the Filipino masses. Number one. Number two, if Cory Aquino will be pushed against the wall, she might just, unleash the power of the military to do again military campaign against the rebels.
The communists, having agreed to the ceasefire, will obviously make it work to their advantage. The communists will never agree to anything that, will be disadvantageous to them. So the ceasefire is either the least of all evils facing them now, or it could be the most advantageous possibility for them at the moment. But definitely they would not agree to it if they would not be able to function. And obviously they feel that they can function.
Possibly the ceasefire would also give the military a chance to explore other ways other than the purely military solution to a problem, insurgency problem, which is a complex one, which is also highly political and economic one. Now, to solve it in a purely military way, I think, they're also trying to find ways and means. And it's only by engaging into a ceasefire that both do not engage, they have relative quiet, so they can look at their own, they can also assess their methods, how far they have achieved. So both groups actually are assessing, and this ceasefire will give them that time.
The military, the power base of former President Ferdinand Marcos, has grown so strong that it has now become an indispensable part of the government. In Marcos's time, the military had expanded greatly in number to a present force of 250,000. The military was once seen as an ill-disciplined, corrupt and abusive force. Its reform is seen as a top priority in improving the image of the Filipino government. But the Reform the Army Movement, or RAM, has also helped to oust Marcos. There's a mixed feeling towards the military and where it should go.
We see the military